Immediately, Trump orders Department of War to start U.S. nuclear testing, October 30th, 2025. One of the most shocking announcements ever, and people are pointing to a particular prophecy. You will be shocked when you discover 5 findings about this announcement. Discovery 1. The announcement that shocked the world. So let's break down exactly what happened on October 30th, because the details here matter more than you might think. Trump is in the air. Marine One is carrying him toward a high-stakes trade summit with Xi Jinping. This isn't just any meeting. The relationship between the United States and China is at one of its lowest points in modern history. Trade tensions, military posturing in the South China Sea, Taiwan hanging in the balance. Everything is on edge. And Trump knows this. He knows the world is watching. He knows Xi Jinping is preparing for this meeting. And that's exactly when he decides to post this nuclear testing announcement. The timing here is not accidental. Nothing Trump does at this level is random. This was calculated. This was strategic. This was a message sent not just to the American people, but to China, to Russia, to every nation on Earth that's been watching the nuclear balance of power shift. But here's what caught everyone's attention immediately. Trump didn't say he's instructing the Department of Defense. He said the Department of War. Now, you might think that's just Trump being Trump, using different language, but it's not. In September 2025, Trump officially rebranded the Department of Defense. He changed the name to the Department of War. And if you understand history, you know that from 1789 to 1947, it was actually called the Department of War before being renamed the Department of Defense. Trump brought back the old name, and there's symbolism in that choice that we cannot ignore. Defense suggests protecting what you have. War suggests action, aggression, dominance. It's a shift in mindset. It's a shift in messaging. And now, just weeks after that rebrand, he's ordering this department to begin nuclear weapons testing again. Within hours of this post, the global response began flooding in. Russia called it escalatory. China reiterated their commitment to peaceful development. The United Nations warned of catastrophic miscalculation risks. Even some of Trump's own advisors were reportedly caught off guard by the announcement. And here in the United States, the reaction was swift and divided. Democrats immediately condemned it as reckless. Some Republican hawks applauded it as necessary deterrence. People living in Nevada, where these tests would likely take place, expressed fear about environmental and health consequences from past testing that still lingers today. Defense stocks surged. Companies like Honeywell and BWX Technologies saw their share prices spike because investors know what this means. Contracts, government spending. But before we can understand where this is going, we need to understand why this is happening now. September 23, 1992. The United States conducts its last nuclear weapons test at the Nevada National Security Site. It's an underground detonation designed to be contained, to minimize fallout, to limit environmental damage. And after that test, we stop. Completely. Between 1945 and 1992, the United States conducted over 1,000 nuclear tests. Think about that number. Over 1,000 nuclear explosions, most of them at the Nevada test site, some in the Pacific, some in Alaska. The environmental consequences are still being measured today. The health effects on local populations are still being studied. The radioactive contamination in some areas will persist for thousands of years. So when we stopped in 1992, there was genuine relief. There was hope that maybe, Just maybe, humanity had stepped back from the edge of self-destruction. But here's what changed. The world changed. The geopolitical landscape that made this approach viable has fundamentally shifted. North Korea conducted its last nuclear test in 2017. That was the last time any nation conducted a confirmed nuclear explosion. Now, here's where I need to pause and ask you a question. Have you noticed how this is unfolding? The timing, the tensions, the escalation? Because if you know your Bible, if you've been studying prophecy, you should be recognizing patterns here. Patterns that were predicted thousands of years ago. And that brings us to Discovery 4, where we're going to connect what's happening right now to specific biblical warnings about the end times. Because what you're about to see will change how you view these current events forever. Discovery 4. The Prophetic Connection. Wars and Rumors of Wars. Let me take you to a hillside outside Jerusalem, roughly 2,000 years ago. Jesus is sitting with his disciples on the Mount of Olives. They've just left the temple, and they ask Jesus privately, "When will these things happen? What will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" And Jesus gives them a roadmap. He gives them a sequence of events. He tells them exactly what to watch for. And his first warning, his primary warning, is this. Matthew 24, 6-8. "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled. For all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. And there shall be famines, and pestilences, and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." Now, I want you to really focus on that phrase, wars and rumors of wars. Because most people read right past it without understanding the depth of what Jesus is saying here. Wars, that's straightforward. Actual armed conflicts, nations fighting, blood being shed, territory being contested. We've seen wars throughout human history. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. Wars have been a constant in human experience, but it's that second part that's crucial. Rumors of wars. In the original Greek, the word translated as rumors is akoas. It doesn't just mean gossip or speculation. It means hearing, report, announcement. It's the constant drumbeat of potential conflict. It's living in an atmosphere where war is always threatened, always possible, always hanging over your head like a sword. And that's exactly where we are right now with Trump's nuclear testing announcement. This isn't a war. Nobody's firing missiles yet. Nobody's invading anyone. Nobody's dropping bombs. But the threat is there. The preparation is there. The posturing is there. The rumor of war is everywhere. Russia conducting nuclear-capable missile tests. The United States now announcing we're resuming nuclear testing. India and Pakistan in constant tension. Iran threatening Israel. It's not war yet, but it's the constant rumor of war. It's the preparation for war. It's nations demonstrating capabilities, issuing warnings, drawing red lines, making threats. And here's what's fascinating. Jesus specifically tells his disciples, "See that ye be not troubled." Why would he say that? Why would he tell them not to be troubled by wars and rumors of wars? Because he knew these events would cause fear. He knew the natural human response to threats of conflict, especially nuclear conflict, would be panic, anxiety, dread. He knew people would be terrified. And he's telling his followers in advance, don't be troubled. This must happen. This is part of the plan. This is the pathway to my return. But then he adds something that changes everything. All these are the beginning of sorrows. Now, I've mentioned this before, but I need to go deeper here because this phrase unlocks the entire prophetic timeline. The Greek word translated sorrows is Odin, and that word is incredibly specific. It doesn't just mean pain or suffering in general. It means birth pangs, labor contractions, the specific pain a woman experiences when she's about to give birth. And if you understand anything about childbirth, you know how contractions work. They start slowly, hours apart, relatively mild. You might not even be sure if labor has actually started. But then they get closer together, 5 minutes apart, 3 minutes apart, 1 minute apart, and they get more intense, stronger, more painful, until finally the moment arrives. The baby is born. Jesus is using this metaphor deliberately. He's telling us that the end times will follow the exact same pattern. Signs will start appearing, slowly at first, spread out over time, easy to dismiss, easy to explain away. But then they'll accelerate. They'll get closer together, more intense, more undeniable, until finally, the moment of his return arrives. And here's what you need to understand about where we are right now. We're in the acceleration phase. Now, I want to take you back to Ezekiel 38 and 39. This prophecy describes a massive coalition of nations attacking Israel. And the leader of this coalition is identified as Gog, from the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshech and Tubal. These are ancient names, but scholars have traced them to specific modern locations. Magog is identified as Russia. The far north references in the text point directly to Russia's geographic position relative to Israel. Meshech and Tubal are ancient regions in what is now Turkey. Persia is explicitly named, which is modern-day Iran. Put, which is Libya or North Africa. Kush, which is Sudan or Ethiopia. So we have Russia, Turkey, Iran, and North African nations forming a coalition to attack Israel. And here's what should make your hair stand on end. That exact coalition is forming right now. But here's where it connects to Trump's nuclear testing announcement. Look at what God does when this coalition attacks Israel. Ezekiel 38:18-23. And it shall come to pass at the same time when Gog shall come against the land of Israel, saith the Lord God, that my fury shall come up in my face. For in my jealousy and in the fire of my wrath have I spoken. Surely in that day there shall be a great shaking in the land of Israel, so that the fishes of the sea, and the fowls of the heaven, and the beasts of the field, and all creeping things that creep upon the earth, and all the men that are upon the face of the earth, shall shake at my presence, and the mountains shall be thrown down, and the steep places shall fall, and every wall shall fall to the ground. And I will call for a sword against him throughout all my mountains, saith the Lord God. Every man's sword shall be against his brother, and I will plead against him with pestilence and with blood. And I will rain upon him, and upon his bands, and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain, and great hailstones, fire, and brimstone. Thus will I magnify myself, and sanctify myself, and I will be known in the eyes of many nations, and they shall know that I am the Lord. Let me break down what God says He's going to do here, because every detail matters. First, a great shaking. An earthquake so powerful that mountains are thrown down, steep places fall, every wall collapses. This isn't a normal earthquake. This is something unprecedented in scale. Second, confusion in the enemy ranks. Every man's sword will be against his brother. The coalition will turn on itself. Friend will fire on friend. Ally will attack ally. Complete chaos and destruction from within. Third, pestilence and blood. Disease and death sweeping through the invading forces. Fourth, and this is the key phrase, I will rain upon him, and upon his bands, and upon the many people that are with him, an overflowing rain, and great hailstones, fire, and brimstone. Fire and brimstone raining from heaven. Now, let me ask you a question. What does a nuclear explosion look like from the ground? What does it look like if you're standing at a distance and you see a nuclear weapon detonate? You see a fireball rising into the sky. You see intense heat radiating outward. You see material being sucked up into the mushroom cloud and then raining back down. You see fire literally falling from the sky. The blast creates pressures and temperatures comparable to the surface of the sun. If Ezekiel, living in the 6th century BC, had witnessed a nuclear explosion, how would he describe it? He wouldn't have the technical vocabulary. He wouldn't know about atoms, radiation, or thermonuclear reactions. But he might describe it exactly as he does here: fire and brimstone raining from heaven. Now, I want to be very careful here. I am not saying that Ezekiel 38 will be fulfilled through nuclear weapons. The text is clear that this is God's supernatural intervention. This is divine judgment, not human warfare. But here's what I am suggesting. What if the coalition brings nuclear weapons with them? What if Russia, which has the world's largest nuclear arsenal, threatens to use nuclear weapons against Israel? And what if God, in his judgment, turns those very weapons against the invaders? What if the fire and brimstone he rains down is the nuclear arsenal they brought with them, supernaturally redirected back onto their own forces? That would be poetic justice. That would demonstrate God's sovereignty over even the most destructive weapons humanity has created. And it would fulfill the prophecy in a way that uses both supernatural intervention and the natural consequences of their own evil intentions. But there's another crucial detail in Ezekiel 38 that connects directly to current events, and it's something most people overlook. Ezekiel 38:8. After many days thou shalt be visited. In the latter years thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people, against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste. But it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them. And again in verse 11, And thou shalt say, I will go up to the land of unwalled villages. I will go to them that are at rest, that dwell safely, all of them dwelling without walls, and having neither bars nor gates. The invasion happens when Israel is dwelling safely, when they're at rest, when they feel secure, when they're living in unwalled villages without bars or gates. That's not the Israel of today. Today, Israel is one of the most militarized nations on earth. They have the Iron Dome missile defense system. They have compulsory military service. They have security barriers and checkpoints everywhere. They're constantly on alert for threats from Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran, and other enemies. Israel today is not dwelling safely. They're dwelling in constant vigilance and defensive posture. So what has to happen for the conditions of Ezekiel 38 to be met? Israel has to reach a point where they feel secure, where they let their guard down, where they believe the threats have been neutralized. And how does a nation reach that point? Through peace agreements, through international guarantees, through normalized relations with former enemies, through economic prosperity that makes conflict seem unprofitable. In other words, through exactly the kind of diplomatic efforts we've been seeing in recent years. The Abraham Accords that normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations. Talks of Saudi Arabia potentially recognizing Israel. Discussions of comprehensive peace frameworks for the region. If these efforts succeed, if Israel reaches a point where they genuinely feel secure, that's when Ezekiel 38 becomes possible. And here's where Trump's nuclear testing announcement fits into this prophetic puzzle. The United States has been Israel's security guarantor for decades. American military might has been the ultimate deterrent preventing Israel's enemies from launching a full-scale attack. But what happens if America's nuclear deterrent is questioned? What happens if our enemies wonder whether our weapons actually work after 33 years without testing? But here's the deeper question. Is America even going to be in a position to defend Israel when Ezekiel 38 happens? When you read through end times prophecy, when you study Daniel, Ezekiel, Revelation, and all the prophetic books, one thing becomes very clear. America is not mentioned. The most powerful nation in the history of the world. The nation with the largest economy. The nation with the most advanced military. The nation that has shaped global events for over a century. And we're not in end times prophecy. Why? There are several possible explanations, and none of them are comfortable. Option 1. America declines as a world power before the end times events unfold. Economic collapse, political fragmentation, moral decay, something causes us to lose our dominant position. Option 2. America is destroyed. Whether through war, nuclear attack, natural disaster, or some combination, we're removed from the world stage entirely. Option 3. America still exists, but becomes irrelevant. Perhaps we're simply overshadowed by other powers. Perhaps we're in such internal chaos that we can't project power internationally. Any of these scenarios would explain why America isn't mentioned in end times prophecy. And all of them suggest that our current position of dominance is temporary. Now, watch how this connects to nuclear weapons. If America is weakened or destroyed, if our nuclear umbrella is removed from our allies, what happens to Israel? What happens to the nations that depend on American protection? They're vulnerable, they're exposed, and their enemies know it. The Ezekiel 38 invasion happens when Israel is dwelling safely, but it also happens when they're isolated, when their allies don't come to their defense. Look at Ezekiel 38:13. Sheba and Dedan and the merchants of Tarshish, with all the young lions thereof, shall say unto thee, Art thou come to take a spoil? Hast thou gathered thy company to take a prey, to carry away silver and gold, to take away cattle and goods, to take a great spoil? These other nations, likely including Western powers, don't intervene. They just ask questions. They issue statements of concern, but they don't act. They don't defend Israel. Where is America in that scenario? Why aren't we coming to Israel's defense? Why aren't we using our military might to stop this invasion? The silence in the text suggests we're either unable or unwilling, and neither option is comforting. Now I want to show you another prophetic connection that's absolutely critical to understanding what's happening right now. 1 Thessalonians 5:1-3. But of the times and the seasons, brethren, ye have no need that I write unto you. For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. For when they shall say, Peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them, as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Peace and safety, those two words together. It's not just peace. It's not just safety. It's both. It's the declaration that we've finally achieved lasting peace and permanent safety. And Paul says, when the world makes that declaration, that's when sudden destruction comes. Unavoidable, inescapable, like labor pains on a pregnant woman. Now look at what's happening in our world right now. We have simultaneous, contradictory trends. On one hand, we have peace initiatives, Abraham Accords, normalization agreements, diplomatic breakthroughs, economic cooperation, everyone talking about peace, peace, peace. But on the other hand, we have the largest military buildup in decades, nuclear arsenals expanding, hypersonic missiles being developed, cyber warfare capabilities increasing, space weapons being deployed, and now, nuclear testing resuming. We're pursuing peace while preparing for war. We're declaring safety while building the most destructive weapons ever created. That contradiction, that disconnect between what we're saying and what we're doing, is exactly the deception Paul warned about. The world will declare peace and safety. Treaties will be signed. Agreements will be made. International bodies will celebrate diplomatic victories. But underneath, the weapons are being prepared. The coalitions are forming. The tensions are building. And then, when everyone feels secure, when everyone believes we've finally achieved lasting peace, that's when destruction comes. Suddenly, without warning, without escape. Now I want to take you into the book of Revelation, because there are descriptions there that, when you read them with nuclear weapons in mind, become absolutely chilling. Revelation 8:7-12 describes the trumpet judgments. The first angel sounded, and there followed hail and fire mingled with blood, and they were cast upon the earth. And the third part of trees was burnt up, and all green grass was burnt up. And the second angel sounded, and as it were a great mountain burning with fire was cast into the sea. And the third part of the sea became blood. And the third part of the creatures which were in the sea and had life died. And the third part of the ships were destroyed. And the third angel sounded, and there fell a great star from heaven, burning as it were a lamp. And it fell upon the third part of the rivers, and upon the fountains of waters. And the name of the star is called Wormwood. And the third part of the waters became wormwood. And many men died of the waters, because they were made bitter. And the fourth angel sounded, and the third part of the sun was smitten, and the third part of the moon, and the third part of the stars, so as the third part of them was darkened, and the day shone not for a third part of it, and the night likewise. Let's analyze these descriptions. Fire and hail mingled with blood, burning up a third of all trees and grass. What causes that kind of widespread burning? What could destroy a third of all vegetation on Earth? Nuclear firestorms. The thermal pulse from nuclear explosions, igniting forests and grasslands across entire continents. A great mountain burning with fire cast into the sea, turning a third of the sea to blood and killing a third of sea life. What could do that? A massive thermonuclear weapon detonated in the ocean. The blast, the heat, the shock wave, the radiation contaminating vast swaths of the sea. A great star falling from heaven, burning like a lamp, contaminating a third of the fresh water and making it bitter so that many die from drinking it. And John specifically names this star Wormwood. Do you know what the word Chernobyl means in Russian and Ukrainian? It means wormwood. The site of the worst nuclear disaster in history shares its name with this prophetic star. Is that a coincidence? Or is John seeing nuclear contamination of water supplies, radiation poisoning on a massive scale, and describing it in the only terms he has available? The darkening of a third of the sun, moon, and stars. What causes that? The ash and debris from thousands of nuclear explosions filling the atmosphere, blocking sunlight, causing global cooling and darkness. I'm not saying these judgments will definitely be nuclear weapons. God can accomplish these judgments through purely supernatural means. But what I am saying is that for the first time in history, we have created weapons that could literally fulfill these descriptions through natural cause and effect. We have made it possible for the prophecies of Revelation to be fulfilled through human technology. The red horse and the great sword. There's one more connection I need to show you, and it ties everything together. Revelation 6:3-4. And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. The second seal, the red horse, war. And notice what power is given to the rider: to take peace from the earth. Not to prevent peace, not to disrupt peace talks, but to take peace from the earth. That means peace exists first. Peace is established. People believe they've achieved it. And then it's taken away. And the rider is given a great sword. In Greek, the word is machaira, which typically refers to a large sword or weapon. But the phrase great sword suggests something beyond normal weapons, something of unprecedented destructive power. What if that great sword, in modern terms, is nuclear weapons? What if the taking of peace from the earth is exactly what we're watching set up right now? Peace initiatives being pursued, agreements being signed, normalization happening, everyone talking about safety and security. And then, suddenly, it all collapses. War breaks out, and the weapons used are unlike anything the world has seen before. The red horse rides. Peace is taken. Nations kill one another with the great sword, and we're watching the sword being sharpened right now. We're watching nations prepare their arsenals. We're watching testing resume. We're watching the pieces fall into place. Let me bring all of this together, because it's crucial that you understand the pattern we're seeing. Jesus said these signs would be like birth pangs, starting slowly, spread out over time, then accelerating, intensifying, becoming more frequent and more severe until the moment of birth.